Alright guys, I'm dead happy because today is new project day. And what project am I going to be doing? Well, I'm going to be doing one of my favourite things, which is building another electric car. Not a full size one, another one same size as the Batmobile that I built. And if you don't know what I'm on about, check this out. Anyway, what am I going to be doing today? Well, what am I going to be doing over the next few weeks? I'm going to be building a tea bucket hot rod. What's a tea bucket? A tea bucket gets its name from a Model T Ford. And what people do is they buy these old cars which were made from 1908 to 1927. And they put small wheels on the front, big wheels on the back, and then they put a massive engine in and turn it into a hot rod. I think that they look pretty cool, but that's not the reason I'm making it. The reason I'm making it is because I believe, here we go, I'm saying it now, I believe I can build it within 6 weeks. And I've got a full-time job, you know, I don't work on these things all day, every day. So, I should have said 8 weeks. I've said 6 weeks now, I've committed. God, I'm pushing it. In that case, better get on with it. Let's get making. So here we've got the basic drawings that I've made of the tea bucket. T because it's a Model T Ford. And the bucket, I think it's because of the shape at the back here. Now I'm not 100% sure about that, so if anybody's watching this and you know why, then please leave a comment in the section below and let me know. The reason I chose this car is because after building the Batmobile, which was full of curves and compound angles, I wanted to build something that was relatively square. There's no compound angles on this, it's just small wheels, big wheels at the back, false engine, and this bucket section that sits on the box section chassis. You'll notice that there's no measurements on it at the moment, and that's because as you're building it, you'll find that things are slightly different and you have to alter something. So what I do is my basic plan, and then I draw an individual drawing for the pieces that I'm going to make. These are the wheels will sit on here, and these are the steering brackets. This is the push-pull rod from the steering wheel, and that will turn this bar, which will turn the wheel. The only thing I've done wrong on this drawing is I've drawn the bar on the bottom, but I'm actually going to be fitting it on the top, so it sits above the frame and not below. I was going to go to the shop tomorrow and buy some U-section steel, but I've found this piece, and if I can cut this into 4 equal pieces, then I'm going to weld 2 pieces together to make this, and if it seems strong enough when I've finished, I'm going to use that, which means I can start building it today instead of tomorrow. So let's get on with it. Well, it's good news. I've managed to make these 4 pieces out of that angle that I found, all the same size. Now I just have to weld them together. But when I weld them together, the size is slightly smaller than what I've drawn, and because they're welded and the weld goes down the middle, it means that I'm going to have to move the position of this bolt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move it to the centre of this top piece, which is, it's not a bad thing. It'll change the rake of the car, but well, it's a hot rod, isn't it? So it doesn't matter if the front's slightly lower. Right, let's get that done. Now that I've got all the holes drilled in the brackets, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bolt through, and I'm going to put a nut on the outside and a nut on the inside, tighten it all up, and then I know that all the holes line up. And now I know everything's in line and I can weld it up. Now that I've got the bracket made, I've cut a tube and I'm going to weld a nut into the top and into the bottom, and that will fit in between this bracket and help it to pivot. I've just got back from the shop and I've got myself a load of material. So now I can finish off this steering bracket and then I can start to make the frame. This steering bracket, come on, I welded a nut on the inside, and through the centre of the wheel I've just got a threaded bar. This is the cheapest way to make a steering. That just fits on there. The nut tightens up against the bearing in the wheel. Wheel spins freely. This piece gets welded onto here, and then the whole thing can turn. And the way it turns is I'm going to get a piece of metal, I'm going to weld it onto the top of this, and then this can act as the push-pull, well, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the push-pull steering bar, I don't know. Anyway, I'll just do it and you can see what I mean. Yesterday you saw me file the end of this, and then I welded the tube on. And after I'd welded the tube on, I found this. It's underbodenschutze bitumen. Well, for those of you like me who don't speak German, it's car underbody seal. Car seal, underbody car seal. It's under seal for a car body, that's what it is. It's under seal for a car body. And it stops the bottom of the car rusting. And it's absolutely fantastic for covering bad welding. Look at that, you can't see all the mistakes I made. It's fantastic. So now what I've got to do is I've got to do the other side. You've already seen me do one side, so you guys can come back once all that's finished. Catch you later. Yesterday, while you weren't looking, I finished off the steering bracket holder. So now I've got one of these on each end. This is going to sit inside the steering bracket, and it's going to sit on this threaded bar. All I have to do is weld that nut onto the top, turn it into a bolt, cut it to length, and that, as you can see, moves really freely. You don't need bearings in this because at the end of the day, it's a kid's car. It doesn't get used very often, and providing you put enough grease on these bolts, they'll last for years. Now what I've got to do is to make the axle for the front wheel to sit on. I'm going to make it out of this threaded bar, and to do that I screw it into the nut that I've welded on here, fix it in position with another nut, cut it to length, and it's done. Let's get on with it. First thing I do is screw the bar into this nut. Then tighten this nut onto the back of this. And now tighten it all up with the nut on the other side. Leave a few threads and mark it so you know where to cut it. Cut it to length and it's finished. So there it is, steering brackets all mounted, only temporarily. It's got to come back off yet because I've got to weld this bar on. This is the steering bar, and when I pull and push the steering bar, that's what turns the wheel. It's not going to be welded straight on, it's got to be at an angle like this. The centre of this has to point to the centre of the back axle to form the Ackerman angle. I'm not going to go into the Ackerman angles now. I'll wait till I've got a rolling chassis and it's easier to show you. So I've just got to take this back off now, weld on the steering brackets and then get it painted and it's finished. Then I can move on to making the chassis. Let's get on with it. One of the reasons I started off with the steering bracket is because when I build the chassis, I want to determine where to weld this piece to. Because if I weld it too close, when the wheel turns, it's going to rub on the chassis. So now I know the wheel can turn this much without rubbing, and that's more than enough. So I'm going to weld it on approximately here. Right guys, that's it for part one. I'm going to go and weld all this subframe up now. It's not very interesting watching me welding, so I'll let you guys off. You can go and do what you want, and if you come and join me again in part two, by the time you get here we'll have a rolling chassis, and in part two I'm going to start finishing off all this push-pull rods for the steering mechanism. I'm going to show you how I do that, and a few other things as well. I don't know yet, we'll just see what happens. So if you don't want to miss it, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching guys, catch you next time.